Well, good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to the 32nd Product Development Awards launch webinar. My name is Andrew Barber, and we're delighted to welcome Tom Lawrence in joining us, who leads the Early Use Assessment Evidence Generation work at NICE. We're also joined by a number of my i4i colleagues, Savannah Lynn Rogers, who will be leading on the PDA presentation, Lawrence Glennon-Alty, Pippa Gledhill, Amy Muggeridge, Alex Sabali Findlay, Yeva Salkaskater, and Noel Gruffy. So please make sure to ask any questions you have in the Q&A box. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see three dots. Make sure you click those and choose the Q&A box for your questions. Otherwise, they won't get seen. For your information also, we will be recording the webinar and then sharing the slides and the recording afterwards. Next slide, please, Amy. Next one. The agenda today is very straightforward. I'll be briefly introducing the i4i Invention for Innovation program in the broader context of the NIHR, and then my colleague Savannah will explain the eligibility criteria and the application process, sorry. And then we will proceed to a Q&A session responding to all the questions that are in the Q&A box. Next slide, please, Amy. So the core mission of the wider NIHR is to improve the health and wealth of the nation through research. And the research will cover things like funding high quality and timely research that benefits the NHS, investing in world-class expertise that translate into improved treatments and services, partnering with patients, service users, carers, and communities, attracting, training, and supporting the best researchers, collaborating with other public funders, charities, and industry, and funding global health research as well to meet the needs of people in low and middle-income countries. Next slide, please. As you can see, we are one of the largest investors of health and social care research in Europe, investing £1.77 billion in the financial year 2024-25 in research funding and research infrastructure support services. Next slide, please, Amy. This slide shows the NIHR's 12 research funding programs, which funds research across the full spectrum of health and care, i.e. clinical evaluation and translation, technology evaluation, health service delivery, public health and social care. And the NIHR funds commissioned research as well that addresses specific topic areas, as well as researcher-led research with questions directly proposed by the researchers. The NIHR Invention for Innovation i4i program is the flagship funding program for industry, academia, and the NHS, predominantly aimed at the health tech sector. Next slide, please, Amy. So specifically, the i4i funding program, which is the subject of today, is a translational research funding program aimed at de-risking early to late stage medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and high-impact patient-focused digital health technologies, including artificial intelligence for ultimate NIHR use. Next slide, please. So the i4i program funds innovative technologies across a wide range of the translational development pathway, that is from early translational research to clinical evaluation and real-world implementation. We provide funding through three separate funding streams. That's the i4i Product Development Awards, Connect, and funding at the speed of translation, which we call FAST. all of which fit within the full span of the innovation pathway. i4i Product Development Awards are our largest awards with funding that is uncapped, while i4i Connect and FAST are smaller awards targeting a specific audience or a specific development need. The entry point for the PDAs and for Connect is Technology Readiness Level 3, TRL3, with FAST can be variable. With your entry point, you need to have demonstrated experimental proof of concept with laboratory data demonstrating that the innovation works, which is generally needed to be provided in your application. Next slide, please, Amy. Okay, this simple graph, which we call the valley of death, it actually highlights where the i4i funding sits. That is, after basic research has been funded and throughout the period where external funding is rather limited. So our funding has the ability to move the technology right up to the point where industry, angel investors, or venture capital funders are likely to be interested. Next slide, please, Amy. So what about the achievements as a direct result of i4i funding? Specifically, since 2008, the i4i programme has awarded more than £367 million to 623 projects, reviewing over 4,500 applications in the process. The investment leveraged amounts to over £2 billion from private investment and acquisitions, and £72 million from other public funding. The studies that we funded have involved more than 1,000 collaborations, almost 70,000 participants, and approximately a third of these studies achieved CE marking, or it was planned to be done, during the award lifetime. In terms of commercial traction, and in addition to the funding leveraged, our portfolio also includes 2 companies that are listed on a stock exchange and 7 corporate acquisitions. At this stage, I'll now hand over to my colleague Savannah, who will run through the eligibility criteria and the application process. Over to you, Savannah. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Savannah Lynn Rogers, and I'm a Programme Manager within the i4i team. So today I'll be running through the eligibility criteria and application process for our Product Development Awards. Next slide, please. So our Product Development Awards support prototype development, early clinical evaluation, and real-world evaluations of innovative healthcare technologies. As Andrew mentioned, those within remit being medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and high-impact patient-focused digital health technologies for use in the NHS or social care systems. For digital health technologies, we'd expect that these would fall within Tier C of the NICE Evidence Standards Framework, and it should be demonstrated that the NHS England DTAC have been considered, along with compliance with the Guide to Good Practice for Digital and Data-Driven Health Technologies. When applying, please do make sure that you explicitly state the type of technology within the application. Projects must also be collaborative, involving a minimum of 2 co-applicants, as well as different organisation types to achieve the expected outcomes. So the lead organisation can be an SME, higher education institution, NHS organisation, social care provider, or not-for-profit organisation based in the UK, collaborating with any type of organisation depending on the work that's planned to be delivered. However, if you're requesting support for a clinical trial, one or more of the partners needs to be an NHS organisation or social care service provider that will act as a site for evaluation. In terms of duration, projects can be anywhere between 24 to 36 months for our standard PDA calls. The only deviation is for our NICE early use assessment call, which I'll touch on later, which are up to 36 months in duration. There's also no upper funding limit, as we encourage ambitious projects with the potential to make a real impact. However, for reference, the average funding that we currently award is around £1.2 million per project. Next slide, please. So in terms of the application process, we operate a 2-stage process consisting of an outline and full application stage. So in stage 1, submitted outline applications are reviewed and scored against the assessment criteria and presented at a shortlisting meeting by the i4i Secretariat, at which all committee members participate in the decision-making process. Successful applicants are then invited to prepare and submit a full Stage 2 application, considering any feedback provided by the committee, and resubmitted full applications are then subject to expert peer and public review, and applicants are given the opportunity to provide a response to any comments prior to committee meetings. On the day of the committee meeting, applicants would then be required to present the work as an online pitch and subsequently answer questions in a 10-minute discussion led by the lead assessor, after which applications are discussed and funding recommendations are made. So regardless of the application stage, applicants will be notified of the outcome and will receive feedback on either eligibility constraints or areas for improvements. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates the number of applications received for PDA between 2011 and 2025. So of the 2,267 applications received at outline stage, 23% of these typically progress to stage 2, and of those that reach stage 2, approximately 52% of these are awarded, with the overall success rate for PDA being around 12%. However, with the increasing number of applications that we're receiving for each round, PDA is becoming more competitive. Next slide, please. So what makes a good i4i application? This slide gives an overview of the key considerations that help to make a competitive PDA application, which I'll now move on to discuss in a bit more detail in the following slides. Next slide, please. So firstly, the proposal will be assessed on how it targets unmet needs for patient and end user benefits. So the proposed research must be relevant to the needs and priorities of the NHS or social care system. So it really needs to respond to an existing or emerging clinical or social care need. In your application, we'd like to see details on the scale of the problem you're aiming to address with supporting metrics, along with a clear indication of any specific priorities you're addressing. We expect applicants to clearly articulate the health economic case and the impact it will have on the health or social care systems, as well as what benefit it will have for patients or service users. Please also include how your innovation impacts the health and care systems, how it will fit into or disrupt existing care pathways, and what the health economic implications are, comparing it with standard of care or any other competing solutions in development or on the market. Ultimately, we'd like to understand the benefit to patients, service users, and end users over existing NHS or social care practice. Next slide, please. Applications will also be assessed with regards to the level of innovation. So our aim is to fund innovative and disruptive technologies, and we'd therefore like to see details of the level of innovation of the technology and how it provides an advance over current products. The application should clearly state the current stage of development, which as a minimum needs to be at TRL 3, and contain details of the technology, including technical specifications such as design, safety, performance, as well as the regulatory status. Please also articulate within the application what differentiates your technology from those currently in development or already commercially available, and include any information or data that substantiate your case for development, which should largely be based on work to date, but may also include evidence from the literature. Next slide, please. So there also needs to be evidence of a realistic project plan being delivered by a strong team. In terms of the project plan, this should provide details about the research with clear aims and objectives to address the specific questions being asked. There should also be a clear description of the work packages to be undertaken, including project member involvement, associated deliverables and milestones, as well as a carefully considered project timeline, which should ideally be outlined in a Gantt chart. An appropriate framework for effective project management also needs to be in place, including governance and risk management. So, for example, here we would expect to see risk matrices or mitigation strategies within the application. With regards to team expertise, the project team you've assembled should also encompass the relevant expertise to develop the proposed technology and carry out the different aspects of the project. And if there are any gaps, these should be addressed by onboarding the missing expertise through, for instance, consultancy or subcontractors. Next slide, please. So we also expect applicants to present a strategy for the commercial development of the technology, as well as considerations with regard to uptake in the NHS or social care system. In support of this, details on current intellectual property arrangements, as well as freedom to operate position, should be provided within the application. You should also include a comprehensive market analysis and describe the advantage of your innovation over competitive products. and we'd expect a considered strategy for regulatory development, which may include onboarding external parties if the expertise isn't available in-house, and we'd advise consulting with the MHRA as early as possible. We'd also like to understand your plans for follow-on funding, potential sources of onward investment, as well as plans for development beyond an i4i award. And then in respect of the financial aspects of applications, they should demonstrate value for money with the requested costs being sufficiently justified and appropriate against the activities outlined in the application. Next slide, please. There also needs to be a clear plan for knowledge mobilisation, which describes the intended research outputs and outcomes and the route to impact with detailed activities to realise these. In this regard, the application must also demonstrate that key stakeholders and evidence users have been identified and engaged with early on in the process. And there needs to be a clear and systematic approach for knowledge mobilisation, which includes, but also goes beyond, the dissemination of research findings. Next slide, please. The NIHR expects active involvement of people and communities in the projects it supports, and it's anticipated that i4i projects will have significant involvement of the relevant patient or user groups, with a meaningful engagement strategy included and associated activities clearly described throughout the application. Groups affected by the research should be consulted with at an early stage, ideally at the application stage, and the application and project plan must be informed by lived experience. So here we'd expect applicants to demonstrate a clear understanding of the diverse people and communities affected by the research and the potential impact of the technology on their experience. You should also consider people who have historically been underserved by health and care research to ensure their involvement and that the research is inclusive of these people or communities. Further details regarding research inclusion can be found on our website, and I'd also encourage you to look at NIHR's include guidance here. Next slide, please. And then further to this point, applications must demonstrate an inclusive research design. So you're expected to demonstrate how your research considers inclusion and contributes to reducing health and care inequalities. This needs to be built into the entire research lifecycle, starting with considering inclusivity when framing the research question and designing the research, and which must also flow through recruitment of participants, research methods, data collection and analysis. A particular emphasis will be placed on how you consider this in respect of participant recruitment and selection. And then also just to highlight that as part of the new sex and gender in research policy, it's now also a consideration of NIHR funding that applicants show that they've considered sex and gender or both across the research lifecycle. So the quality of these considerations, in addition to inclusive research design requirements, will now be considered by funding committees when reviewing applications. Again, further details of this policy can be found on our website. Next slide, please. So having highlighted what makes a good i4i application, here are some common pitfalls that we typically see which should be considered when putting together a proposal. I'll hover over these for a few seconds, but these will be included in the webinar recording. However, note that these typically relate to evidence gaps within the application, a weak emphasis regarding the clinical need or how it will fit within current care pathways and systems, unrealistic project timelines, and allocation of time for specific activities such as recruitment, and also limitations regarding the study design. Next slide, please. Similarly, applications often fall down where there's not been sufficient regulatory considerations at the time of application. Projects teams lack the necessary experience for the work packages to be conducted, or insufficient time allocations for individuals have been included. Also, where patient and public involvement and engagement hasn't been sufficiently integrated into the research activities and design, and the project budget isn't proportionate to the research design and activities. So please do bear these slides in mind when putting together your application. Next slide, please. In terms of what we fund, this slide provides an overview of the types of activities that we fund within projects. Note that we don't fund research involving animals, animal tissues or stem cells, work related to early stage or basic research, so technology readiness levels 1 and 2, professional training, which also includes PhD stipends and fees, scale-up manufacture, and also digital health technologies that fall under Tier A or Tier B of the NICE Evidence Standards Framework. Next slide, please. So moving on to our current funding opportunities. For our product development awards, i4i is participating in the following 5 funding opportunities with separate applications on the awards management system application portal for each of these. So firstly, we have the main PDA researcher-led workstream, which invites applications for research projects on any area of unmet need within the remit of i4i. We currently have highlight notices for brain tumours, invasive lobular carcinoma, and traumatic brain injury. Further details of each of these can be found on the website. We also have the 3 commissioned funding opportunities available, which are the JLA rolling funding opportunity. So within this call, we're interested in receiving applications which address any of the James Lind Alliance Priority Setting Partnership research priorities. In particular, we welcome applications addressing the JLA Priority Setting Partnership for palliative and end-of-life care. Additionally, we have the NICE rolling funding opportunity, which welcomes applications that meet recommendations in research identified in NICE guidance that's been published or updated in the last 5 years. In particular, we're interested in receiving applications for wearable technologies for identifying the risk of falls. And we welcome applications that generate high quality evidence to support and the recommendation for the use of such wearables. We also have the themed funding opportunity, which addresses DHSC's area of research interest 3. So applications for this call are expected to focus on developing innovations shaping and supporting the public health and social care workforce of the future. For these calls, please ensure that you review the opportunities carefully before applying to the most relevant opportunity, and note that proposals received into any of these funding opportunities must be within the remit of the i4i PDA researcher-led funding opportunity. All applications will be assessed in the same process, regardless of the opportunity selected, with success rates being the same for all, with the exception of the NICE early use opportunity, which is highlighted in pink. So this opportunity invites applications aimed at generating real-world evidence or other relevant evidence for products that have been recommended for early use in the NHS through NICE early use assessment that's required to achieve a full NICE evaluation. So projects can focus on generation of real-world evidence required by commissioners to encourage increased uptake and the use of technologies within the NHS and social care settings, or capturing learnings for generalisable guidance for innovators. So in addition to meeting the general i4i eligibility criteria, this call differs slightly from our standard PDA calls as follows. Next slide, please, Amy. So for product eligibility, technologies must be approved for early use in the NHS through NICE early value assessment, and evidence generated to support NICE evaluation should be completed during the evidence generation period defined in the evidence generation plan. In terms of collaborative requirements, projects must include a consortia of an analytical partner who would be the lead applicant, a technology partner who would be the product provider, and at least one NHS adopting site or service. Projects can be anywhere up to 36 months in duration, and there's no upper or lower limit for the funding requested. However, again, costs must be fully justified and offer value for money. Next slide, please. So when ready, applications should be submitted through the NIHR awards management system, for which you'll need to register for an account. Please ensure that you register as early as possible, as it can take up to a week for the account to be approved. And when putting together the application, ensure you read the domestic programme's funding guidance alongside the specific funding opportunity guidance prior to submission. And note that the outline application guidance for our standard PDA calls is separate from the NICE early use opportunity. So please ensure that you're looking at the correct guidance. Next slide, please. So key points to note regarding the registration process are that if your organisation's not on the drop-down list, you may need to click the link to register a new organisation. Also, your equality and diversity reporting system information and ORCID ID must be completed to enable submission of the application. Registration is also required for applicants and co-applicants, with the exception of PPIE co-applicants. So please ensure that this is completed to prevent any issues with submission. Next slide, please. So we have a number of additional NIHR resources which you may find useful when putting together your research application and project team. So there's the Research Support Service, which offers support and advice to applied health, public health and social care researchers on the design and delivery of research and development of research funding applications for all applicants who are based in the UK or have England, or have a project partner based in England. We also have the Study Support Service, which can offer assistance with running your study in the NHS. Life Sciences Industry Support can help with forming partnerships to strengthen your work and is available to all UK-based life science companies. Our health tech research centres can help health tech companies to develop, evaluate and validate new technologies. So this includes helping to generate evidence to demonstrate financial value, so with regards to health economics, or improving operational efficiency in the NHS, such as real-world evidence generation. There's also the clinical research facilities that can advise and participate throughout the application process, from initial idea development and design through to project delivery and reporting. So these might not be essential for all types of research studies, but if you are looking for a CRF to collaborate, please do look at the CRF and UK CRC CTU network web pages. And then finally, for applicants based in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, there's the NHS Research Scotland, Northern Ireland Clinical Research Network and Health and Care Research Wales respectively, which are all useful resources to look at when putting together an application and assembling a project team. Next slide, please. So finally, key dates for your diary regarding the current PDA funding opportunity. So the deadline for the outline stage is the 27th of May at 1 p.m, with applicants notified of the outcome on the 5th of August. And then if invited to submit a full stage application, the deadline for this will be at 1 p.m. on the 23rd of September. Shortlisted applicants will then be notified if they've been successful in receipt of funding from December. Next slide, please. So I'll now hand back over to my colleague Amy Muggeridge, who will help facilitate the Q&A session alongside Tom, Andrew and myself and other members of the i4i team.